Scientists have uncovered the dark truths about these haunted objects, and brace yourselves, these stories are not for the easily scared. First up, the Annabelle doll. In 2014, the movie Annabelle told the story of a haunted doll that was said to have been possessed by a malevolent spirit. However, the true story behind the Annabelle doll is far more fascinating. The Annabelle doll is a Raggedy Ann doll that was purchased by the mother of a nursing student named Donna in the 1970s and given to her as a Christmas gift. But hold on, she was apparently 28, so why was her mom giving her a doll at 28? Is that not weird already? Anyway, shortly after, Donna and her roommate began to experience strange occurrences, including unexplained noises, movements, and changes in temperature. The student and her roommate noticed the doll changing positions and leaving notes on the floor. It's reported that one of the paper notes had the word "help me" written on it in crayon. The doll also appeared in different rooms. A male friend actually woke up with the doll staring at him and felt like he was being and suffocated. He also allegedly noticed he had scratch marks all over his body. He was angry when retelling this nightmare that he allegedly then picked up the doll and chucked her raggedy body across the floor. Geez, scary and weird, right? Now, if you thought it was a dream, why are you so pressed though? It's alleged that one morning while the nurses were eating at their breakfast nook, Annabelle's two flimsy little cloth arms levitated onto the table. When the startling, paranormal activity took place, the nurses were oddly fascinated by the doll. One of the nurses deduced that the doll's actions meant she was trying to communicate with the roommates, so she called a psychic for advice. The medium took no time coming to the nurse's aid and quickly held a seance. While hosting the ritual, the psychic reported that she was, basically sensing the spirit of a young girl about 6 or 7 years old. The psychic went on to imply that the child was unalived outside of this apartment complex in a car accident. The psychic said her name is Annabelle and she's in that doll. That's how the name Annabelle came to be. The cursed doll Annabelle was first introduced to horror audiences in The Conjuring in 2013 and proved to be so compelling that the porcelain figure quickly became the subject of her own franchise, with Annabelle in 2014, Annabelle Creation 2017, and the latest, Gary Dauberman's Annabelle Comes Home. Now, The Hollywood Reporter actually spoke to Tony Spira, the real-life occult museum curator and son-in-law of renowned demonologists Ed and Lorraine Warren. Spira says that the Annabelle doll is accurately portrayed in the films, at least according to the mythology of the museum. Now, the main difference between New Line's Annabelle and the Occult Museum's doll is just appearance. Lorraine Warren, who passed in 2019, said that looks are very deceiving. She said, "It's not what the doll looks like that makes it scary. It is what it has been infused within the doll, which is evil." In 2019, a team of paranormal investigators from the University of Edinburgh conducted a thorough analysis of the doll, including its history, composition, and alleged paranormal activity. Their findings revealed that the Annabelle doll is not in fact haunted, but rather its strange behavior can be attributed to a combination of psychological and environmental factors. The investigators concluded that Donna's experiences were likely the result of a combination of stress, anxiety, and the power of suggestion. As Dr. Caroline Watt, a paranormal investigator from the university, noted, the Annabelle doll is a fascinating example of how our perceptions can be influenced by our expectations and beliefs. Now, that's questionable to many people who do believe the doll is haunted. Today, the Annabelle doll remains safely housed behind a locked glass case in Ed and Lorraine Warren's Occult Museum. Next up, the Hope Diamond. The Hope Diamond is one of the most famous diamonds in the world, with a history dating back to the 17th century. The diamond was actually discovered in India in 1673, and it was stolen during the French Revolution. The diamond was originally part of a Hindu statue's eye. The Hope Diamond, a stone as alluring as it is mysterious, is a major draw for all who go to see it. Its discovery brought about terrible fates, though, for seemingly everyone who came into contact with it, leading many to believe that the gem was cursed. And because of this, for centuries, it was believed to be so, with many of its owners meeting very tragic ends. The man who found the Hope Diamond, Jean-Baptiste Tavernier, was said to be torn apart by wild dogs after stealing the diamond from the Hindu statue. Now, by 1908, the Washington Post was claiming that the Hope Diamond has brought trouble to all who have owned it, and followed up with several similar articles, heightening the bizarre and morbid stories attached to the precious jewel. Now, in 1911, the New York Times printed a very fascinating fascinating and completely unsubstantiated list of the fates of the stones, previous owners, which makes it a very unsettling read. However, in 2010, a team of scientists from the Smithsonian Institution conducted an analysis of the diamond, including, the structure, the history, all of that jazz. Now, their findings revealed that the Hope Diamond is not cursed, but rather its owners have been victims of circumstance and bad luck. Questionable. I'm wondering how they concluded that. Like, how do you get proof that something isn't cursed, right? Anyway, the diamond's history is marked by a series of just unfortunate events, including thefts and betrayal, which have contributed to its reputation as a cursed object. As Dr. Jeffrey Post, curator of the Smithsonian's National Gem and Mineral Collection, noted, the Hope Diamond is a remarkable object, but its history is more a reflection of human nature than any supernatural force. The large diamond actually weighs about 45.52 carats. That is after undergoing a few cuts. Its original weight was marked at 112 carats. This weight is substantial, especially when you consider that this diamond isn't a traditional colorless diamond, but it has a deep blue color, though no one is actually certain of its exact location. The large diamond faced its first cut in 1168 when it was purchased by King Louis XIV of France and crafted into one of his crown jewels. It worked its way down through the family until Louis XV and his wife Marie Antoinette had it. When the couple were beheaded in the French Revolution and the royal treasure, pilfered, the Hope Diamond was lost, and its cursed reputation then took root. The general public can view the Hope Diamond in the Harry Winston Room in the Hall of Geology, Gems, and Minerals of the Natural History Museum of the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. That was a mouthful, so if you're ever in Washington and want to catch a glimpse, go for it. Next, we have the Busby stoop chair. The Busby stoop chair is a notorious object that is said to be haunted by the ghost of Thomas Busby, an executioner who was crucified in 1702. According to legend, anyone who sits in the chair will be cursed with bad luck and eventually meet a very tragic end. After many generations of victims falling, to fatal accidents, the cursed chair would be sold to the Thirsk Museum, where it would ultimately become an attraction, suspended from the wall to the ceiling currently to prevent any visitors from sitting on it and activating its curse. However, in 2018, a team of scientists from the University of Leeds conducted a thorough analysis of the chair, including, the structure, the history behind it, and all the kind of past curses that were said to be about it. Now, their findings did reveal that the chair is not in fact haunted, but rather its strange reputation can be attributed to a combination of folklore and psychological manipulation. The scientists concluded that the chair's supposed curse is likely the result of a combination of suggestion, expectation, the power of storytelling as well. But as Dr. Richard Wiseman, a psychologist from the University of Hertfordshire, noted, the Busby stoop chair is a classic example of how our perceptions could be influenced by our beliefs and expectations. However, fans of course do beg to differ and still believe it's not only haunted, but really cursed. Next, we have the Dibbuk Box. Now, the Dibbuk Box is a notorious object that is said to be haunted by a malevolent spirit known as a Dibbuk. Now, according to legend, the box was originally owned by a survivor who used it to contain the evil spirit. Essentially, the box is claimed to contain a trapped Dibbuk, causing misfortune to anyone who opens it or comes in close proximity with it. The term Dibbuk actually comes from Jewish folklore, where it represents a wandering spirit that can possess a living person to achieve its goals. Now, people who have allegedly owned the Dibbuk Box report experiencing various negative events like sudden illness, extreme bad luck, feelings of anxiety, and even physical manifestations. The Dibbuk Box gained widespread notoriety due to, paranormal investigators like Zak Baggins featuring it on their shows, and it even inspired horror films like The Possession. Last on my list for today is Robert the Doll. Robert the Doll is a haunted doll that is on display at the East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida. The doll is said to be the most haunted doll in the world, so beating out our girl Annabelle. Now, some key points about the doll is that, a young girl gave a life-size doll to Robert Eugene, who went by Otto, in 1904. Otto named the doll Robert after himself, and Otto built a room in his attic for the doll with furniture and toys. Otto became attached to the doll and blamed it for his mishaps. Now, legend has it that the doll is cursed, and visitors who don't follow the doll's rules will be cursed as well. According to sources, some visitors have experienced sudden illness, injury, accidents, and even fatality after just visiting the doll. Visitors apparently write to Robert, often apologizing for not respecting him, out of fear of course, meeting a fateful end. Robert is now technically 117 years old, very old, and lives at the museum in a new display case, which was recently donated by someone who is a fan of Robert's. So if you find yourself in Key West, give it a visit and report back.
Yvonne Hides is an events manager for the Scottish Ghost Company and has organized paranormal investigations across the country. And during one such event at Proven Hall, she received an old-looking doll from one of the members. After taking it home and placing it in her spare room, a number of strange incidents occurred on the property. So we do have some video footage today of the absolute chaos that was happening in Yvonne's house. The bizarre series of paranormal activity culminated in an investigation in a park where Yvonne is adamant she saw the creepy doll blink. She told Glasgow Live one of the members' friends had brought the doll to him after being on holiday in the north of England. They bought it from some charity shop. And she tends to be the recipient of a lot of weird things. Most of the dolls she has in her possession are all hand-me-downs, and they don't bother her. But that night, with that doll, it was making her feel uncomfortable. So she had mentioned her friend David, who works as a medium, absolutely hates this doll. When our lovely witness brought it home, he was like, I'm gonna keep that in the garage. And that made her a little worried. Suddenly, the Cocker Spaniel in the house took a dislike to the doll being in the room. It started barking and shaking. And if you know, animals tend to be the most susceptible to weird spirits. One day our witness came downstairs and saw one of her really heavy lamps sitting in the middle of the living room. Her son came in and was like, hey, are we moving stuff around? Nope. More objects were being moved around each morning and weird electrical things started to happen. Turns out they have like an electrical vacuum that is programmed to come out at 10:30 each night. Well, she was turning off the lights one morning and it went out and did its own thing. So she looked on the website and it hadn't been registered as being active at the time. So when David took his turn bringing the doll home throughout the night, he also reported knocking and footsteps that just didn't make sense. So the Scottish Ghost Company took this doll to a park to investigate it. They did a little live stream on TikTok, on Facebook. They tied a red light around the doll's neck with hopes of allowing the spirit to transfigure its face onto the doll. Well, during the process, Yvonne and a few others on live stream were like, yeah, that doll blinked. So it was then up to the team if they wanted to bury it or keep it. They decided to keep it, so I'm sure I'll do an updated video in like a year and it's gonna be everything awful. A spooked man believes his flat is haunted after he filmed a lot of objects moving by themselves. So this bizarre video, which was captured at the man's home in Fayetteville in North Carolina, shows a number of items that are just throwing themselves off a kitchen counter. So the video was posted on Reddit and a lot of folks were like, okay, maybe there was like a piece of string, maybe we were just like doing some really great magic. And I was also kind of skeptical, but then I saw everything moving. The papers were fluttering and I was gonna be like, okay, fraud with a fan. But then the toaster went flying and I was like, yeah, nope, that's legit. So the unnamed filmmaker who posted the video said that they came home to a couple of things out of place and decided to review the footage. And it scared the hell out of them, which valid. Apparently they're like, yeah, maybe I was being paranoid, but they could feel something or someone looking at them. And they were seriously considering breaking their lease to move. So I checked the comments on the original Reddit post and the man claimed there was a couple of things that happened in the bathroom and the living room. Thankfully nothing in the bedroom, primarily just the kitchen. And he's like, yeah, I've lived here close to a year. This started 2 months ago. Now, granted, as of the time of me telling you this was 7 years ago and the original post was deleted. So I don't have an update, but I'm hoping the guy did break his lease and got the heck out of there. Ever balance on a chair so stupidly that when it eventually tips, you blame the chair instead of your own stupidity? Well, today we have video of a chair doing a whoopsie without any human involvement. The owners of Cronies, a bar and restaurant in Ventura County in California, already lost their words after a surveillance video from the restaurant shows a bar stool falling over on its own, with nobody around. So for this to happen, it's pretty creepy, said the co-owner, Dave Folds. He's like, it's just really weird. We've been here 27 years and nothing like this has ever happened. Now, the owner was like, this is not a Halloween stunt. I'm confused. I don't know what's going on. Customers don't seem to be frightened by the potential haunting. They're like, oh, it's funny. It's interesting. Saying I'm okay until it's my chair that moves. Another customer was like, so many people come and go. Maybe this place is haunted. I got a feeling. So according to the co-owner, there's a lot of good spirits there. They were referring to the photos that cover the walls of the restaurant. There's customers, there's employees, everybody. But apparently the co-owner does have an idea of who might be responsible. Apparently Ralph and Don, the first originals of the restaurant, introducing the co-owner to his wife, passed 20 years prior. And whenever something weird happens, they blame it on them. Which not smart, but okay. Good luck. Sean Robinson ended up in possession of a petrifying painting more than 20 years ago after his beloved grandmother passed away. But this isn't something you might want to hold in your home. It had been kept hidden away by his grandmother while she was alive because she didn't like to look at it, because it was unnerving. And when you look at it, you'll understand why. Now, he's aware skeptics are like, okay, maybe his grandma just wanted to scare and tease him. But he's like, no, what I was told about the Anguished Man was the truth. Footage shared on his YouTube channel shows how a door suddenly slammed shut without human intervention, which was kind of the first red flag for Sean that maybe something was wrong. He's like, I've witnessed a lot. Noises are the first thing, and at first he didn't relate them to the painting. But it became obvious that they only started when the painting got brought into the house. Sean used to wake up in the middle of the night and see a figure at the end of his bed. He'd have dreams about the painting. Heck, he had a vivid one where he was being lifted off the bed, alien style. As well as alleging to have seen the figure of a man, just like his grandma used to claim she did. Sean says he heard crying, he heard moaning noises. Once he was even surrounded by thick smoke while the temperature plummeted. All signs of demonic activity. Sean said there was no denying it. It was there, and then it just vanished. And most of the activity seems to happen between 3 and 4 a.m. The witching hour.
Number 5. The Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and the Occult. Owned by a couple, Dana and Greg Newkirk, who realized one day that they had a passion for the paranormal and a collection worth boasting about, they opened a museum with the intention of getting people to experience the paranormal as close as they could. The thinking being that we don't usually get to experience it up close, this museum provides a one-of-a-kind horror experience. Some of the gems of the collection include a piece of the real-life Amityville horror house, the infamous haunting, or how about the Catskills crone, a terrifying hand-carved idol of a human with nails jammed into the eyes, allegedly tied to a supernatural entity called the crone. The Restless painting, a cursed painting notorious for flinging itself across rooms. Or if that's all not enough for you, perhaps the terrifying begging bowl, an ancient Tibetan offering made out of a human skull, designed for rituals where the offerer would feed the skull wine, bread, and blood in exchange to temper the raging spirits of demons for good fortune. Now, there's no question the Traveling Museum is one of the most unique collections on the planet, and lucky for you, it's always moving. But if you're looking for good scares, you don't need to travel anywhere, because you already know the best scares are coming to you twice a day, every day at Top 5 Scary. Stay subscribed and stay scared. Number 4. Zaffis Museum of the Paranormal. Now, for most of us, we probably wouldn't think of mixing cursed items in with the decor. I wouldn't want to bring that dark energy home with me. I get enough bad vibes as it is. Well, for John Zaffis, he welcomes it with open arms. What kind of person would want to do that? Well, if I told you that Zaffis was the nephew of Ed and Lorraine Warren, would it make a bit more sense? Feeling inspired by his aunt and uncle, Zaffis too became a collector of the paranormal and an investigator of the unknown. Must run in the family. He worked alongside his aunt and uncle on several of their cases where he was tutored by them in the ways of the paranormal, leading him to become a respected hunter in his own right. Following in their footsteps, he opened his own museum of his own demonic relics. His collection includes souvenirs from the cases he's worked on in the past, much like his relatives. Some highlights of the collection include a black cast iron human skull that was discovered inside an unnamed political family's house, a black idol that was used for satanic rituals, a sword that was apparently used to conjure black magic, and a whole lot more. Now don't worry, everything Zaffis taken in is safe, it's been cleansed, and he's very careful with his vetting process. Apparently anything too cursed for him to feel safe bringing into the museum, he throws into a body of water. So just be careful swimming around the museum, I suppose. Now the museum is currently closed, but Zaffis is searching for a new location to open up again soon. Hopefully somewhere with some nice thick walls. Keep all that evil energy in check. Number 3. The Museum of Death. Well, that's a cheery name, isn't it? You have to imagine with a name like the Museum of Death, there's something suspicious going on. Nope, not particularly. It's owned by a very cheery couple who built it in 1995 in the city's first mortuary. Their intended mission is to make people happy to be alive, which actually is very terrifying and ominous in a sort of Jigsaw, cherish your life sort of way. It's intended as a commemoration of life, just with a heavy focus on the last stage of life. It serves as a grim look at death, although the owners insist they don't want to scare anyone, but they're not trying to sanitize death either. Instead, they choose to show the reality of it, all the grisly details and all. As such, The museum is a site of controversy for quite some time, as some people find the exhibits a bit extreme. Some people go so far as to say it's tasteless, with footage of autopsies being shown and a collection of all sorts of relics from some of the evilest of evil criminals, Jeffrey Dahmer to name one. The museum boasts an impressive collection of bones, skulls, coffins, ancient mortician's tools and execution equipment, and all manner of macabre curios guaranteed to leave you feeling uneasy. Now, it should be noted, the museum is absolutely not at all for those with a squeamish stomach, and really should be reserved for those with a real dark interest in the dead. Number 2. Ed and Lorraine's Occult Museum. Now, it's hard to talk about a list of cursed museums full of the devil's objects without mentioning the Warrens' legendary Museum of the Paranormal. It almost goes without saying. It's probably one of the most famous haunted collections on the globe. Ed and Lorraine were storied demonologists, and the chances are extremely good. If you've even seen 2 videos by us, you've probably heard about them a million times. But it's still one of the coolest museums of cursed objects on the planet and is packed to the gills. It would be just wrong to leave it out of this list. Although the pair have since passed a while ago, the museum is now upheld by their son-in-law, Tony Spera, who carries on the mantle for them. The museum sits in a large shed just outside the Warrens' former property. I guess it's best to keep the evil close to home. The museum houses all sorts of dark souvenirs from the Warrens' storied past and is a veritable who's who for Conjuring and Warren fans. You can get a chance to get up close and personal with the real Annabelle, snap a selfie with her if you dare, or take a look at the cursed shadow doll made of real human teeth and bird feathers, or perhaps a satanic idol retrieved from the woods that caused Lorraine to become violently ill when brought in. If the Warrens were on the case, then they brought something back sitting on that shelf. Mr. Spera blesses everyone who visits the museum before entry, just in case there's any residual evil hanging around in the air you might be bringing in. A priest comes by too to bless all the items, keep them safe. The museum is currently closed to visitors, but Spera is working hard to have this piece of paranormal legacy reopened once again. Number 1. Zak Baggins' Haunted Museum. Now, if you're looking for the cream of the crop, if you're looking for the peak of the haunted museum circuit, well, then no one has worked harder for that distinction than Zak Baggins, the esteemed paranormal investigator and ghost adventure star. Zak's collection started when he was a young boy, when he would scour garage sales with his mom in hopes of finding strange occult objects. I wonder how often he was finding occult objects at garage sales. Since then, a lifelong obsession would eventually turn into one of the most impressive hoards of spooky finds under the sun. The museum is in Las Vegas, built on a property in 1938 that has been said to be home to dark spirits who pass there, and their energy remains behind. Before becoming a museum, it's rumored that it used to be home to secret orders that would perform dark rituals. Among some of Zak's more treasured haunted items are the Dibbuk Box, a wine rack said to be home to the world's most malevolent poltergeist, a possessed rocking chair from the famous Glatzel case, inspiring The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, and tons of relics from the world's most sinister criminals like Ed Gein or Ted Bundy. Now, it goes without saying that a building replete with haunted items is a melting pot for spirits and haunting sightings. The tour warns you and asks you to sign a waiver before entering that you're knowingly putting yourself at risk of endangerment from unknown forces. Now, staff at the museum have reported everything from seeing strange lights, shadows, hearing peculiar noises, feeling unwell around certain objects, all the way to real extremes like seeing mysterious figures and cloaked, robed people at night. If you're feeling up for it and you want to feel like a paranormal investigator yourself, the museum also offers solo tours at night with nothing but a flashlight to guide you. Just be aware of what you're going up against.